Hello again to all of us. This is the story I'm going to tell this afternoon. This is the story of E-tia-i-te-toua. It's from the Marquesas Islands. And in the ancient times in the Marquesas Islands, there weren't any police. And so everybody was their own police. And so this story is going to deal about revenge. But it's also a story about a good brother who helps his sister. I'm going to tell the first third of the story because it's a really long story. Okay, so there's a story, and it continues from another story. There was this boy named E-tia-i-te-toua. He was born in Vainoi, and when he was a child, he went to Ta'ao to live with his father. And that boy, he met his father, and then after that, the boy E-tia-i-te-toua, he lived in Ta'awa, and when he grew up, that's a valley in Hiwa'oa. When he grew up, he became the chief of Ta'awa. And he married a woman, and she bore him children. Nunuia puatea koa e ta'a koe te kape tu manawai te whao tumu ani te ha'a tau niua pakaha imaoa. And then E-tia-i-te-toua, and then a sister Pekua. E-tia-i-te-toua and Pekua, in their bodies, they were human. The other brothers were all different. One was like an eel, one was a kape plant, one was a tree. Okay, they were all different. Pakaha imaoa had a really long arm. But anyway, these children, they grew up, and when they were grown, their sister, Pekua, she married a husband. And she became pregnant, and when the child was born, it was a boy. And his name was Polta'atimau. And this boy, the parents, they fed their son, they raised him. And when he grew up, when the father saw that their son was big, the father, he made an oho'au, which is like a special kind of a little house, and is for tapu act. There are things that they would do that were tapu. They were sacred, and you'd have to prepare yourself in advance. So he made an oho'au for tattooing. And so then he hired a tattooing expert, and then they tattooed the boy. And when this boy was done being tattooed in the oho'au, the father said to the mother, he said, let's go up onto the mountains and we will snare doves to prepare a feast for the showing of the tattooing of our son. And so then the father and the mother, they went up on the mountain. They went up on Mount Fe'ani to snare doves, and they snared a dove. And the first dove that they caught, the father and the mother, they cooked it on a fire, and they ate it, and then they were full. And then the parents, they went on, but they didn't catch any more doves. And the problem is the first dove was tapu. It was sacred, and they should not have eaten that tapu dove. It was tapu for their son. And so the parents, they didn't catch any more doves. And the grandparents of the boy, they were waiting for the parents to come back with their dove feathers. And the parents didn't come back. And when are they going to come? They wait and they wait. The parents did not come back. And so the grandparents, they said, they said among themselves, the two grandparents, they said, let's take our grandson. We will go to his fiancée, the daughter of E-tia-i-te-toua. And E-tia-i-te-toua was the chief of Vainoi, of Pu'ama'u, this other valley on the opposite side of the island. And so the grandparents, they went with their grandson. And they got up in the mountains above Pu'ama'u, above this valley, and the grandparents, they sang this song. Hey tuia, Polta'atimau, Polta'atimau, Eotimo ea E-tia-i-te-toua, which means the engaged, Polta'atimau, that's their grandson, Polta'atimau, engaged to the daughter of E-tia-i-te-toua. And so when the grandparents and their grandson got close to the house of the young woman, she saw the boy coming, and her name was Maihaki, and she said, come, come. And this girl, Maihaki, she said, give me my husband. And E-tia-i-te-toua, the girl's father, said, don't you climb up onto the platform of our house. And the girl said, give me my husband. My husband, you are my head. Which is a term of endearment, because their heads were tapu. Their heads were sacred. And E-tia-i-te-toua said, what is this? My daughter, you have insulted your head. This boy must die. And E-tia-i-te-toua, he grabbed that boy, E-tia-i-te-toua, and he took him to a sacred spot. And he grabbed his head, took him to a sacred spot, and he hit his head with a stone axe. And the grandparents were there, and they were watching this. And E-tia-i-te-toua said, "Why are you crying? If you cry, the blood rain will come down from the sky for you." And the boy E-tia-i-te-toua said, "Let it rain, let it rain." And the blood rain, it fell. And the shaman of E-tia-i-te-toua, they said, "E-tia-i-te-toua, this is E-tia-i-te-toua. The blood rain would not fall for another." E-tia-i-te-toua said, "This is not E-tia-i-te-toua." And then E-tia-i-te-toua, when he hit that boy in the head, the boy did not die. And he hit him again on the head, but the boy did not die. And E-tia-i-te-toua, he said, "Let the thunder roar." And the boy, E-tia-i-te-toua, said, "Let it roar, let it roar." And the thunder roared. And the shaman who were working with E-tia-i-te-toua, they said, "E-tia-i-te-toua." And he said, "What?" And they said, "This is the chief from Vavau," which is the other side of the island. "This is the chief from Vavau, E-tia-i-te-toua." And E-tia-i-te-toua said to the shaman, he said, "Don't talk to me again." And then E-tia-i-te-toua, he said to the boy, he said, if the oceans rise for you, then I will know that you are E-tia-i-te-toua." And E-tia-i-te-toua said, "Let it rise, let it rise." And the oceans, they rose. There's a great big tide came in at Vainoi. And the shaman said, "Hey, E-tia-i-te-toua, what is this? We told you that this is E-tia-i-te-toua, and you did not listen." And E-tia-i-te-toua said, "If it is E-tia-i-te-toua, then what? Will his strength overcome mine?" And the shaman said, his strength will overcome. And then E-tia-i-te-toua, he hit that boy one last time and killed him. And the grandparents were there. And when they saw that their grandson was completely dead, they took a cup and they gathered up the blood from the place where that boy had died. And then the grandparents, they escaped and they went up onto the mountain. And the parents of the boy were up on the mountain there in Vainoi and snaring doves. And the grandparents showed up and they saw that there was a fire there. And then Pohihia, the grandparents' names were Pohihia and Pohaha. Pohihia, he poured out the cup, the bowl of blood, onto the fire of the mother and the father and the mother of the dead boy E-tia-i-te-toua. And the mother, she saw this blood and she said, "What is this?" And Pohihia and Pohaha said, "This is the blood of E-tia-i-te-toua from the head. He is dead to E-tia-i-te-toua." And when the mother heard that her son was dead, she took a firebrand, a stick that was burning from the fire, burnt on one end, and she tied it up in her hair. She braided it. She tied it on her head and she braided it in her hair. And then the mother, she went. And she came to the top of E-tia-i-te Valley. And there was one of her older brothers. And she called, his name was Te-kapi-tumana, was Nunuia-Puatea. And she called to her brother, "Nunuia-Puatea! Nunuia-Puatea!" And the older brother said, "What?" And the sister said, "E-tia-i-te-toua is dead to E-tia-i-te-toua." And the brother said, "Let it pass, let it pass." And so then the sister, she knew that her brother, he was a lazy brother. And she went to the top of Hanahei Valley. And she called another older brother. "Te-kapi-tumana! Te-kapi-tumana!" And the older brother, he said, "What?" And the sister said, "E-tia-i-te-toua is dead to E-tia-i-te-toua." And the brother said, "Let it pass, let it pass." And the mother, she said, "Then how are we going to do a war for revenge for your nephew?" Because in the ancient times, in the Marquesas, children, when they were born, they had pahu-pahu. And the pahu-pahu of a child was the father's sisters and the mother's brothers. And the obligation of the mother's brothers was, if the child got killed, they had to organize the war for revenge. So the sister says to her older brother, then how are you going to do that? How will we do the war for revenge for the death of the nephew? Because it was this brother's obligation to his sister and to his nephew to do a war for revenge. And the brother said, look, it's a deaf ear that you're talking to. He didn't want to do it. And so then the sister, she went to the forest of Hanatea. And she called another older brother. Ko e-tia-i-te-toua, ko e-tia-i-te-toua. This brother was an eel. The name means the land eel without a fin. Without a fin. And the brother said, what? And the sister said, Po-tatimau is dead to E-tia-i-te-toua. And the brother, ko e-tia-i-te-toua, said, let it pass, let it pass. It's not for the eel to make war. And the eel lives in the water. My sister, let it go. And so the sister, she went. And she came to Hanawawa Valley. And that's the valley where she had a brother who was in his form a human. All her other brothers were all different. This brother he had a human body. And she called to her brother, E-tia-i-te-toua, E-tia-i-te-toua. And the meaning of his name is stand for war. And the brother, the older brother, E-tia-i-te-toua, said, what? And the sister said, Pekua, that was her name. Po-tatimau is dead to E-tia-i-te-toua. And the brother said, take it down, take it down. Take down that firebrand from your hair. And then the sister, she went down to her brother. And he said, and there was something he said, and he said to her sister, my sister, you were dumb. You ate the first dove. Somebody told me that you ate the first dove of that boy. That's why Pohihi and Pohaha waited and were angry. Now you go, and then I will go. So the sister, she went. And then the brother, E-tia-i-te-toua, he went. And E-tia-i-te-toua, he organized all the things. He came to Tehutu, which is in Vavau and Atuona. And then he organized all the different things for the war for revenge for Po-tatimau. And he called the shaman, and the shaman came to him. And he said, and he told them what had happened. And the shaman said, take the message to all of Nuku. Because Nuku was this great big tribe in the western side of Hivaoa and on the island of Tahuata. And so they're going to send out messengers. And they sent out messengers to all of Nuku. And they came and they gathered there in Atuona, in Meam, Vavau. They came from Tahuata. They came from Hanawawa. They came from Hanamenu. They came from all of Vavau. And they gathered in front of their chief. And E-tia-i-te-toua said, I have a word for you. And the shaman said, what is the word for us? And he said, this is my word. In 3 months, we will prepare a war for the death of Po-tatimau. And the shaman said, it's good. It's good. And then E-tia-i-te-toua, he said to the Meam, he said to the shaman who were canoe making experts, he said, in 3 days, we will chop down Ani-ani-te-ani. And that's the canoe with which we will strike against E-tia-i-te-toua. And the shaman said, well, what happens if we can't cut down Ani-ani-te-ani? Because Ani-ani-te-ani was this tamanu tree, very strong wood. But it's like almost a magical tree. It's so strong. And they said, what if we can't cut down Ani-ani-te-ani? And E-tia-i-te-toua, he said, if you cut it down, what do you need to cut it down with? And they said, oh, chief, it would be good if you look for your older brother. And E-tia-i-te-toua said, who is this brother of mine, this older brother of mine? And the shaman then said, we have heard that there is another older brother of Pekua, the sister. We have heard that there's another older brother of Pekua. We have not seen him, but we have heard that he lives in the sea. And E-tia-i-te-toua, he said, and then the shaman said, one of his names is Te-ha-a-taunua. There's another, Pakaha-i-ma'o. And E-tia-i-te-toua, he said, where is he at? I do not know. I will look for him. And then afterwards, all those people who had come, after they're done talking with the chief E-tia-i-te-toua, they ate. And then each group of people went back to their individual valleys. And at this point, this part of the story is done. I will not continue, but this story goes on for, I've only told the first third of the story. I did this story in Marquesian, and I only did it the first third. And so in English, it's just going to be the first third. But it's an interesting story because it's a story about revenge. But it's also another story, and it's about the sister who has this trial. Her son gets killed. And she goes to her different brothers, and each of them tell her to go on, let it pass. And then she goes to her one brother who's in body is a real man. And he's the one he loves his sister. And he goes and he helps her. And he recognizes that she's made a mistake. She shouldn't have eaten that first dove. And he says, you were dumb. But he loves his sister, and he goes and he's going to help her. And later on in the story, he meets a long-lost brother. He has good things happen to him because he's the good brother in the family. And then they go and they get their revenge. The war for revenge. I don't condone revenge. We leave that mana, that power to God. E-tia-i-te-toua. This story is, these words are done.